So, good morning po. I am Ana Marie Faith L. Corpus, an instructor at the Mariano Marcos State University. And today, I will be delivering a talk regarding stress and burnout among employees, the facts, the layers, and care interventions of stress and burnout. So at some point, siguro, during those stressful moments, nadamag tayo siguro ang DJ, kasla DJ commercially tines cafe di, te ko na para kanino ka bumabangon. So you would know that something is already going on, kinyam, or you're already emotionally, physically, and socially exhausted. If DJ question nga para kanino ka bumabangon, ket ag changement ten iti nakakatamad ng bumangon, ayoko na munang bumangon, aglive nakpay lang. Hay, work manen, makitak man da, tutken tuten. Kasano man nga tanga maperdi ti aldaw ko itatan. Okay? No kano DJ, para kanino ka bumabangon nga question, ket nagliden into sentences such as the gizay in mention tay tatay, confirmed nga maka-experience ka ni stress ken burnout. So, first of all, anya ba nga dito yung mauawagan nga stress? It's so easy to say that you are stressed, but are you really stressed? Okay? So, stress is a feeling of emotional or physical tension coming from any event or thought that can make you feel anxious, nervous, frustrated, or angry. Now, stress could be physical. It could also be emotional or psychological. And we know that the pinaka-exhausting of all or the pinaka-draining of all nga type of stress kit dizay emotional stress. Okay? So, why is it a very important or why is it a serious case of stress? Nga mean, when emotional stress becomes ongoing or nabayagso na nga agstay or nabayagso na nga maramdaman, it could have adverse physical effects too that you will experience in the long haul. So part of those or types of physical effects or consequences of DJ stress or emotional stress would be DJ panaka-weaken immune system. It could also cause high blood pressure, extreme fatigue, depression, anxiety, and even a lot of cardiovascular diseases. Okay? So, when you feel stress, the body's normal reaction kano, would require you to adjust your responses. So, when you are stressed, haan mo nga i-sensationalize DJ kano nga stress dapat and you just let it linger for long. You have to change your responses in terms of the physical, the mental, and of course in terms of the emotional. Because we have to understand, psychologists would say, we have to understand that stress talaga, it's a part of life. It's a very normal aspect of living. You can experience stress from your environment. You can experience stress from your body, but most specifically, you experience stress or you create your own stress through your own thoughts and your perceptions and your viewpoints. They say that the gito universal types of stress would come or universal sources of stress would come from universal social experiences or the gito max experience tayo nga tattao universally. For example, the gito universal stressors would be divorce, loss of a job, death of a loved one, etc. Okay? But they also say that sometimes stress could be positive kasi daw it activates our fight or flight response or it activates our adrenaline rush, allowing some of us, I should say, to thrive with stress, meeting unanticipated nga deadlines. But since our topic for today is about stress and burnout and how it is affecting our the nature of our relationships in the workplace, as well as in terms of work-life balance, and syempre, DJ overall operation iti may nga company or iti may nga institution, I would say that at this point, we should not normalize DJ occurrence iti stress or DJ knowledge tayo that stress is normal. Because if we condition our psyche and our body nga normal lang dito, everybody gets stressed. At agarod long-term effects na and to know aglid sunan ito anxiety or burnout, then you would say that DJ panang normalize mo, DJ concept ti stress has led to irreversible nga consequences. Most of the time, we confuse stress with burnout, thinking that these two concepts are one and the same. But if we try to define them in terms of levels, siguro we could say that stress is the baseline and the baseline emotion, and burnout would be a more chronic type of stress. Okay? So, burnout is characterized by emotional exhaustion, cynicism, and ineffectiveness in the workplace. According to the World Health Organization report in 2018, kahit daw hindi naman considered pa na mental illness yung burnout, it could now be considered as a mental health issue or a risk factor in incidences of suicide and in the occurrence of depression or manic episodes or anxiety amongst individuals. So that's the reason why, according to the World Health Organization, hantay nga dapat nga iyaling-aling iti burnout. Ken DJ pa nakafeel tayo iti burnout because, as I have said kanina, there may be irreversible consequences of continuing to work even if you're already experiencing burnout. So, there are three aspects of the burnout syndrome. Umuna, it could be premeditated by emotional exhaustion. Yung wala ka pa namang masyadong ginagawa pero parang feeling mo pagod ka na. Or the statements mo iniisip mo pa lang yung work or deti pa lang agdra-drive ka pa lang mapanjay work feeling mo kat nakabambanog kan. DJ timakon ko na nga emotional nga exhaustion towards the workplace or the environment in the workplace. Another aspect of burnout would also be depersonalization. So, feeling mo, haan nga agmat matter dagiti ububraem mon, awan iti sense of purpose mon when you are working, teor-urayam lang yenen nga sumangpet DJ sweldo, iso nga agwo-work kalatan or sumsumrek kalatan, then you have already entered DJ phase of depersonalization. So, awanen iti value na for you, DJ work mo, kasi feeling mo, handmet nga value DJ work mo. Okay? But then again, we have to emphasize nga, dating aspect, sometimes, it is only just a thought process, and the reality may be not like that, or it may not be too much attuned to what's real or to what's actually going on. Okay? So, it's just a perception, a thought process. And the third aspect is a reduced sense of personal accomplishment, okay, which is very much like what we have just previously talked about met in the personalization, and I think that the concept would already explain itself. Okay, so those are the three aspects of burnout. And burnout syndrome, because it is multifactored and its consequences are multi-layered, is now more studied than stress. And because of the acknowledgement of leading health publications, health researches, and of course from WHO, mas binibigyang pansin yung incidences ng burnout, yung percentage ng mga employees na nagsasabi na naka-experience sila ng burnout, at yung type ng work structure na meron sila, yung workload na meron sila, at yung time na iginigugol nila sa kanilang workload as primary correlates of burnout, okay, or the burnout syndrome. That's why we claim here that burnout is multifactored and its consequences are multilayered. Here are some symptoms of burnout nga you have to look out for. So no amin digito ket matchekan medyo ag problema kay basiton kasi we could say that you're already experiencing a chronic burnout syndrome. No siguro duwawen no talo lang ti matchekan nyo per domain. That's an average level of burnout. No awan, ket congratulations, you're stressed lang and it's manageable through particular response adjustments, and you're not yet experiencing burnout. So as I have said, you have to assess yourselves no ayan na kayon ka level of burnout for you also to understand no ana ba dagiti adjustments in your response nga dapat nga maiset yo, or ana ba dagiti dapat yung obraen later on tapno no ma-mitigate or at least ma-lessen DJ level iti burnout. So muna, I got this from the study of Smith et al. Of the Eastern Illinois University. First would be physical signs and symptoms of burnout. Umuna, feeling tired and drained most of the time. So, ito yung sinasabi natin kanina, nga awan met painub-ubram, yung feeling mukit, nakabanbanog kan. And then, of course, this is very understandable. When you're burnt out, you will exhibit lower immunity, and DJ frequency of you getting sick would be madalas, and then frequent headaches or muscle pain, and then also change in appetite or sleep habits. Emotional signs and symptoms naman of burnout would be, umuna, sense of failure or self-doubt. Kapag kasi tayo ay nasa itong emotional part naman naihihinga lang natin ito sa mga close friends natin o sa families natin. Because when we are in the academic institution, we're all expected to be resilient, and there are emotional restraints uh, nga normatively masapol tay nga i-employ kasi datay kano nga ti pagwadan ti emotional resilience. Okay, so those normative nga and then decreed nga behavior tayo as educators and as people, as staff working in the academic institution, sometimes they could also lead to emotional burnout because hindi na natin ma-manage emotionally nga masapol nga kasyelatan when in fact within our heads, within our psyche, agrebrebelde di gizay values tayon, and so on and so forth. So DJ mismatch between that, the expectation and the underlying personal values or sense of self-worth siguro, no, the mismatch ta, then that could lead to emotional burnout. Okay, so the first one would be sense of failure and self-doubt. Second, feeling helpless, trapped, or defeated. 3, detachment or feeling alone in the world. Being demotivated is number 4. Increasingly cynical and negative outlook on anything. Nakadanon ka DJ pointen nga oray nat ibagbagada siguro ket hang ka nga mamatmatin, or oray na siguro ibagbagadan ket feeling mo ket ada ulterior motive behind that. And then decreased satisfaction and sense of accomplishment. And then, of course, for the behavioral signs and symptoms of burnout, first, withdrawing from responsibilities. These behaviors we should clarify emanate from DJ level of physical and emotional burnout level. And then, isolating yourself from others, procrastinating, or panangyaling-aling iti ubra, kasi feeling tayo siguro undervalued to met lang or it won't amount much. Turning to stress eating, drugs, or the use of alcohol just to cope up. And tapnon hantay ka no malagip for a while DJ stress tayo or jabannog tayo. Taking out your frustrations on others. Nang nangruna ka dagitay adda iti kabalay na wenno dagitay adda iti babasit na pelang anak or anak in general, or naganak kadakwada no daduma no permi kasta unay ti bannog tayo ken frustration tayo from work. Hantay nga naganan hantay nga maiwasan nga dalhen dizay frustration ginga naton makaawid tayo balay tayo. So, instead kung mga dagiti kabalay tayo, isudat agad adjust for us most of the time. Kasi siguro naka-irritable tayo, tay mood swings tayo ket nagbalin nga very fast nga siso, for example. And we always or most of the time we lash out on them. Uray no awang basol da or basit lang day siguro nakabasulan da. Uno dalang trigger word nga na ibagada, we lash out on them. So, nung makaranranas kat kasyayan, you are already experiencing burnout. Okay? And skipping work, coming in late, wanting to leave early, I think that is the most relatable behavioral nga symptom of burnout that we are all experiencing. Okay? I'm not just saying it's within a particular group of professionals only. Kasi when it comes to work, awan met iti siguro, aming nga trabaho ket adda iti high workload na. So I think ti pinaka-relatable talaga kanya tay ang aming nga agub-ubra ket data skipping work, sometimes coming in late, nga awan met rason na nga naladaw ka, talaga nga nagpaladaw ka. And wanting to leave early. Okay? So that's for the behavioral signs and symptoms of burnout. So, wag na natin siguro i-discuss wag na natin i-discuss yung stress versus burnout kasi sa tingin ko naman ay na-exemplify na natin ng maayos noong diniscuss natin yung three types or three symptoms of burnout. Okay? Dagiti three domains gayam nga paggapgapuanan na dagiti symptoms and signs of burnout. So, that time, we move to a more specific idea of why stress and burnout in the workplace should be mitigated immediately. So here are some facts and figures that would reveal to us nga all around the world, stress and burnout are two concepts or are two experiences in the workplace that are now being focused on because of various effects or various consequences that it may bring not only on the overall well-being of the employees, not only in terms of the relationship of employers and employees, but also in terms of goal setting, in terms of output production, and also in terms of the overall operation of those institutions or of those private companies. But the number one, and we should emphasize this one, the teaching profession, according to Rubenia, his study on primary and secondary school teachers in Sweden revealed that the teaching profession and working in the academe have been identified as one of the most stressful occupations causing poor health. So, dito nga study, kinita da iti 26 nga occupations and idi-test da DJ stress points, stress point levels, dagijay 150 each nga professionals kadis across 26 professions. Nakita da nga almost all of those 150 teachers coming from various primary and secondary schools in Sweden naka-incur da amin iti 5.7 nga stress point, which is actually very high already in the stress point scale. Okay? So, that's the first one. According naman to the American Psychological Association, stress and employee burnout has significant monetary losses in private companies and universities annually. Apay, kasi no da duma nang nangruna launay kadagijay kano millennials or dagijay Gen Z nga Gen Z nga professionals or employees da agkatang-katang da, I mean, get from one workplace to another, handa maka-find iti job satisfaction. And they're all pointing at workplace burnout as the reason why agpabalu-balu da iti that no handa nga makabayag in one company. And that would have an effect also on DJ, syempre, finances DJ company or DJ institution kano kasi agsarak dan tumanin aduman nga proseso iti dapat da nga obrayanen tapno maka-hire iti pinaka-qualified nga tao nga mang fill this position. Aside from that, deta ka na yun da nga pa nagli-leave kano nga for example, the sick leave mo, so paid lata leave mo, may mawan output mo for that day. Those are actually considered as losses din daw ng private companies and universities. Okay? And then, 77% of employees experience psychological stress around the world. And that's quite alarming because that's more than half of the entire population of employees around the world experiencing psychological stress. So, kahit nasawin, there is something wrong about our working model around the world if more than half of all people working would develop psychological stress while onto their work nga regardless of the type of work that they are doing. And we have mentioned this already. Burnout is now considered a chronic condition by the World Health Organization. Again, 65% of teachers and university staff around the world report stress-related sleep issues. Malagip ko nga rod, agsasarita kami one time, idiawan iti kuryente ijay MMSU, dakam amin jerwar nga kaka-departmentan. Ket dagiti senior faculty, medyo na-astound da kasi han lang gayam nga may misa or dududwa kadakwada, iti makaka-experience kano dijay suddenly agaraririing da iti alas 2 ti parbangon, alas 3 ti parbangon without any reason or handa nga kinondisyon je bagida talaga nga agreeing kadayjay nga oras. And no kano makariing da, they spend 15 minutes nga agmulmulengleng lang, makitkitain da lang jay ceiling, check ti cellphone, nagbra-browse iti cellphone, and then gaputahan dan to nga makaturugen, ket irugidan to man ti agtrabahon kasi nagiyawid da gayam iti trabaho da from school. The others met kunada, da kami met nga medyo bubing. Ti siguro experience mi met ket even when you are already asleep or even when you are dreaming na, ti matagtagainip mo to pelang ket DJ work mo. So, I could attest to this. I mean, personally, I could attest to this. Mamatiyak ka dito nga statistics nga 65% of teachers and university staff around the world report stress-related issues because I can attest to this firsthand nga during accreditation time, diretso nga 2 weeks nga prepare kat documents. Depersonalize ka talaga even in your sleep, even in your tagdagainip, agub ubra ka. So, in that case, I think when that happens to us na, it calls for a time for distressing or we have to keep our routine that's gonna help us breathe oray for a while lang kasi kamkamaten na ka di trabaho mo pati tagtagainip mo so something is wrong already. Okay, so that's another statistics to look out for. Another is that Gen Z employees are 43% more stressed than boomers kano, okay? Because they are never satisfied and they feel like they could do better and that the system should change and that if the system would change, we would have a better working environment. Women are more stressed than men by 12%. I don't know the truth in this, but I think that when you're a mother or when you are navigating a lot of roles like you're a mother, you're a wife for example or and then you're a teacher pa. Siguro kasi na dagdag sen basit dayjay expectations amongst women, especially that there are normative guidelines no na dayjay no na dayjay characteristics na dagiti makuna nga good mother for example or good wife. So nga, pressure siguro from there. That's the reason why they would say nga, women are more stressed than men. Okay? And then, due to recurring stress in the workplace, at least 7% of the world's population is projected to develop post-traumatic stress disorder at some point in their lives. Okay? And then, employees with higher incomes are more likely to experience workplace stress. Da kayo ti makapaneknek detan, lupod no? Ngem, tila mako nakita, the seniority culture of Ilocanos, it's not true for everybody, because I think that the junior faculty or the gitububing faculty, they are initiated in the workplace, and I'm not just saying this because I am experiencing this, but I have observed this in many talks with friends, and meeting other junior employees when we go to seminars. Our workload is very high because of the culture of seniority nga napagdaanan yumet DJED. So as we go on and as we become more accepted, or as we are initiated inside the workplace, we also have to do what, or we have to also experience what you have experienced. So, ti may sa tendency na DJ ket you're projecting towards junior faculty all the workload kasi nalpasan nyo DJ yun. Okay? And sometimes it's a major cause of burnout among Gen Z employees. Okay? So I'm not trying naman to vilify the Gitay senior faculty, but I mean reality bites. Okay, it happens because of that particular culture. And burnout syndrome accounts for 8% of all illness cases amongst professionals around the world. Okay? So now we move to the underlying factors and consequences of stress and burnout in the workplace. My point of analysis is like this nga we will just focus on two important factors or layers of stress and burnout kasi no i-discuss tayo met amin isuda siguro pang 5 aldaw no kwa di ti kaaduna. Okay? So in here, we will just focus on overall leadership and management and relational conflict in the workplace. Dito nga to nga part, dito nga nung makita yo na ulit lang so niya. Kasi it's like there's a mirror effect kadetoy duwa nga variables nga i-correlate tayo with stress and burnout kasi at one point they are considered as the stressors, but then again when they crystallize as an experience, they will become also the consequences of that of stress and burnout. So I observed that there's a mirror effect kadijay overall leadership and management can relational conflict in the workplace. So this is the framework that we will use for the next slides. So with the recognition of the World Health Organization of burnout as a chronic mental health issue, DJ focus towards towards the individual in terms of his or her coping strategies ket nagbaliwen. So kunati World Health Organization, the paradigm should shift from an individual-centered approach to mental health and burnout to accounting what other factors or what other domains tikas taunay iti influence na ka DJ well-being, overall well-being the individual. And because outside the individual there's work agad-agad, outside the primary groups and everything, it would be work nga mang-define kadijay well-being the individual. Kung nati World Health Organization, we should start looking at the nature of the working models and the general working operation of organizations alongside the capability of individuals to cope up with the stress, with their everyday stress. Okay? So, the factors that were identified nga mang-affect di level ti workplace stress would be umuna high and manageable workload but low incentives. Okay? Minsan pa nga hindi lang low minsan wala talaga di ba? Alam natin 'yan. Dami-daming pinapagawa tapos hantay makapudpud no. Adan tumanen ti adan tuman agsubling tumanen, i-revise tayon tumanen and so on and so forth. Awang mga rod pa nga ayo datak kanya tayo no daduma. So nga ti ending na dijay hangka lang nga ma-demotivate. Ti ending na pay dijay ag-submit kailatan by virtue of compliance han nga gaputa kayat mo dijay o bubraem. Dito ti pagstartan na dijay depersonalization nga imbaga tay tatay ken dijay not feeling dijay lack of a sense of purpose or dijay nababa nga level iti self-accomplishment. Okay? And then, another factor would be unfair treatment at work. Kasi ito, very very observable. Kaya, nga, mapapaisip ka na lang din pag minsan. Apay nga, adadagizay, kaubraam, nga, awan met work na, nga madamot, I mean, kat normal lang pelang dya workload na, ngem, untouchable da, tahan damit maikan iti sa bali pay nga work. Ngem sikang amuda nga nakadadolar tubo brao mon, sikan do pelang iti pagi buntuunan da iti nayon pay nga work, 'di ba? So, of course, uray no anaman pa iti excuse di supervisor, when uray naman pa iti logical nga explanation di administrator. The reality is that you feel DJ unfair treatment or DJ unfair workload kasi makitkitam nga the workmates mo nga wamot una iti ububraan da ngem apahan nga isuda ti pakaitadan na iti additional work. The feeling that they're getting away, getting paid too much nga haan nga commensurate ka DJ, han nga ka-level DJ type of work nga you are demanding from them. Tapos adda ka jay nga nakababalang arti sahod mo. Tapos si kapelat pagibuntuonan da nga adu nga work. Sang feeling mo ket no ba si Tubram ket feeling da matakawan da ka jay or nga sulit di jay ibaybayad da kinyam. Those are points of unfair treatment at work. And it would lead to a high level of workplace stress. And that's actually connected to the third one, DJ, lack of role clarity. Kasi at some point, kitaom di job description mo i-review di job description mo, di pirpirmaam nga kontrata every year, or di pinirmaam nga kontrata idi. Ket, nuhan pa nga nag-update di job description mo, apay nga braom dagi things nga haan nga anent ka di job description mo. Apay sika, for example, ti baunon da nga mapan agubra ti kastoy, agi coordinate ti kastoy, ag follow up ti kastoy. Kada mo di job description mo di jay. Tapos nag-fill di jay kasta unay mat iti panang embarrass da kanyam or panang reprimand da kanyam and so on and so forth. So there has to be a clear role designation in the workplace for us to avoid di workplace stress nga makuna. And then the most important of all, lack of communication and support from administrators. Okay? The power of memo. Okay? The power of being called out. Sometimes, very depersonalized design communication. Memo na lang. Group meeting na lang. Tapos, hawan deti time dan ti administrator siguro or managers or supervisors nga they would really talk to you personally to encourage you or to motivate you or feeling mo ket handa ka nga suportaran kadagizay endeavors mo for professional growth like haan nga sa pasap kas pagarigan iti panakaiwaras iti seminars adadagiti kanayon nga maisesen adamo digay haan latta no met ag take the next step ka nga si ka mismo iti agsarak iti seminars wenno trainings nga relevant ka DJ field of specialization mo or ka DJ job description mo, handa ka met nga rod ikan uri basang kabasit lang ang monetary support wenno leave or tawag tayo DJ tay kasang i-excuse da ka for that day tapno no maka-attend ka lang ka DJ nga seminar wenno training handa pa nga maited you're on your own. So when you feel like you're on your own nga sika lang iti mangikalkali ka DJ personal development mo wenno personal growth mo tapos awan pa mangeg mo nga support words of encouragement from your from administrators then it could lead to a high level of workplace stress. Other leadership related stressors would be unreasonable pressure, okay? Mapasamak detoy when you set a goal for the company or for the institution and then you want so much for that goal to be achieved nga instead of encouraging hard work, instead of encouraging industry and cooperation, you are encouraging mediocrity and sheer compliance latan kasi umuna ti amin indifferent digijay employees mo no para ayan na ba, DJ nga goal. DJ, bakit para talaga ka DJ company or para ka DJ institution? Uno para kinyam lang, for example, okay? So questions like that might happen. And when you're pressuring them or if the pressure is unreasonable, like ilepas yu deto yen, ket deadline, so imbaga da di nga to, ang tagayam ket awan met imbaga jay nga to nga kasjay, sika lang tinangiset DJ kasi bibukid ka, for example, nga leader wano administrator, then as I have said, you will not encourage among your employees DJ drive to be a part of that success, of that future success, kasi you're putting on them unreasonable pressure. So, ano ba kasing mangyayari kapag ka sinabi mo na, sige, deto'y goal tayo for this year, I just want you to work at your own pace, kastoy kasjay, but make sure that by the end of the semester, for example, or by the end of the year, outputs will be submitted, tapno no ma-achieve tayo met lang tayo goal tayo for this year. Manano bagamin no kasjay, professionals tayo mat amin. When you're putting unreasonable pressure, it's like saying that I don't trust you to do this or I don't trust your capability to submit this on time. So, no kasjay mat iti impression nga maala digi employees mo from you, then you will not really achieve anything. Okay? So, that's one thing to consider. Second would be being subjected to constant reforms and changes that demand reorganization of work and work tasks. Okay? Siguro, ti pinaka relatable nga example dito iket teda mapanunot da manen kasang we at the bottom nga employees da tayo at the legwork talaga sometimes mapanunot tayo nga digito'y bayat achieve dapat talaga ba nga talaga ba nga dapat nga achieve for this year kasi sometimes when there's a big project for that year for the organization or for the institution, we tend to overwork our employees, changing reforms every now and then, reorganizing every now and then just to make a quote unquote better structure of work for all of us. Kaso hindi natin nakikita as leaders and administrators na kapag ka hindi natin ma-make up yung mind natin kung ano ba talaga yung gusto nating i-achieve for this year, naapektuhan din yung level ng stress ng ating mga employees. Or, agparamid ka iti may nga paperwork, nang iuswat ka iti template, ngam after 5 minutes, ag-change to man jay template, wano agsublin to man jay inaramid ang outputin kasi nag-change for example jay template, then you would encourage DJ complacent nga workforce kasi in their heads na condition da nga nagubratay tulatan to no ma-finalize the DJ template agsaysayang tayo lang ti effort agsaysayang tayo lang ti ink ken papel agsaysayang tayo lang ti oras, and can you blame them? No, you cannot blame them because it's you who cannot make up your own mind. Nga no agiuswat kay iti kasya nga paperwork agad dapat akot finalize DJ template kasi as we have said adumot pa iti sabali dang obra, adumot pa iti sabali nga workload nga inted mo kanya da nga masapul da nga i-achieve. Okay? And then there's the emotional restraints set by the teaching code, okay? And yes, specifically this is for teachers ngem you would also other people working in the field of or in the context of teaching institutions could also relate to this kasi the teaching code kasi the iti expected nga behavior out of people working in teaching contexts, for example non-teaching and teaching staff alike, nga you always have to be courteous towards the parents of the students because they are our primary clienteles. We have to exhibit maximum tolerance kada gidyo bing tayo uray no unruly da uray no hantay pulos nga ma-correct dagiti behavioral anada tendencies dangahan nga makaayo. We always have to exhibit a high level of emotional restraint. Pero kasi, if we encourage this, or if we always look at it at the perspective of our clientels because of the argument nga, awan taymet no awanda, mapukaw tayo dagitay best and the brightest in our institutions or companies kasi they don't feel rewarded anymore or they feel too emotionally restrained nga anything goes latan or no dito ti kayat wala sige pakaptan mi latan, okay, so we will lose the passion in them, we will lose their motivation to come and work, we will lose their compassion not only towards our primary clienteles but even towards each other because all of them are too burnt out to look after each other na, okay, so that would be one indicator or one reason no apay may baga tayo nga ti leadership and management in the workplace could also be a stressor. So tatan, ije tayo mirror effect nga kuna tayo. How can leadership and overall management in the workplace nga rodmet be a consequence of burnout? Remember, we're all human beings and administrators and company executives get stressed too. Okay? As a matter of fact, again, the World Health Organization report in 2018 revealed that that administrators and company executives are 33% more susceptible to burnout than ordinary employees. Okay? We have to understand that uh, haan lang ada tayo nga adajay trickle down effect iti leadership ken management. Iti kang ronaan nga maka-experience iti burnout. As I have said, administrators and company executives are human beings too, and siguro DJ burnout nga marikriknadan or DJ pressure nga marikriknadan DJ ket i-prod project dalang met kada tayon. So that could be one consequence of burnout in the aspect of leadership and management. Okay nga as leaders and managers, they are burnout too. Why? Kasi muna mangiseset DJ company or DJ bureaucracy, DJ company or institution ti unachievable nga performance indicators. So maybe they're not just lashing out on us or they're not just unfairly treating us because of whim. Ngem dito yan nga sumrek DJ argument nga sikat iki ka na ti workload kasi makita na nga no sikat agubra adu iti output nga ma-generate na from you. And while I could say that that is not very acceptable or that's not very understandable, in the perspective of leaders and managers who are burnt out already, that could be one escape tapno no ma-achieve da at some point dagiti unachievable performance indicators. And number two, of course, bureaucratic pressure. Most specifically, this happens in private companies and institutions. Siyempre, ti directly nga agsungbat kadeta nga bureaucratic pressure ket dagijay assigned leaders can administrators tayo. And because they don't want to fail, and because personally they don't want to fail, and they don't want to be branded as bad or incompetent nga leaders or administrators, they would just work and work aging gana nga ma-burnout dan. And then that also coincides with job insecurity. They're afraid to lose their jobs and the prestige that comes with the job and the perks that comes with that job. So most likely they would compromise their work-life balance nga handamet nga maanan mapupuutanin nga DJ projection da towards the ordinary employees katuhayon nga hindi na lang pala sila yung nababurnout, pati na rin yung mga employees nila burnt out na rin. Okay? So damay-damay na to. DJ ti makungko na nga dark side of projection. Okay? Nga DJ feeling nga low level ti self-efficacy mo as a leader or as a manager or as an administrator would have an overall effect on your work related stress, and the role inflation pa nga makuna gaputa ma enjoy mo iti pan nakabalin ken dayaw ken power nga associated kadeta nga position mo, inflated ka kadijay nga rolen iso nga ti tendency DJ would be you will be stressed or you will be burnt out kasi you will do anything in your power to stay there even if it means compromising also the work-life balance of your employees. So to mitigate this, what could be done? Kuna ni Christine Maslach, the leading figure in stress and burnout studies of the 21st century, kuna na there should be a shift to a more emphatic and optimistic type of leadership. So in her discussion, Tino sana metaphor would be a horde of canary birds nga simrek iti may sa nga coal mine cave. Kunana, the horde of canary birds, as they make their way inside the cave, agkakantada kano pelang iti beautiful chirping sounds and agkakantada amin. Ngem tuno kano makarawardan ka DJ coal mine cave, they would become enveloped in soot and disease and they're no longer singing. Okay? So, ati ko na ni Maslak ijay, would we have the heart to ask the canary birds, for example, no nga basol da, no apay nga rimwarda nga full of soot and disease. So, kanan yan kanan ni Maslak, iti makin basol DJ of course would be DJ coal mine cave. And that DJ horde of canaries led by a leader canary, DJ ti mangipakita or DJ ti metaphor na ka DJ leaders and administrators nga mangililid ka digijay employees da. So kunana ni Maslak, kung tutuusin, hindi naman magkakaiba yung experience ng mga supervisors at ng mga administrators tsaka ng mga employees kasi lahat naman sila may mga workload na kailangan na i-fulfill at may pressure from the organization na kailangang i-achieve. So, if leaders and administrators want to have a better working structure, they should shift to a more emphatic and optimistic type of leadership, and they have to start acknowledging the fact that they're not that different from their employees and that they all have needs nga masapol nga ah, nga ma-fulfill every day at hindi naman din talaga sila nagkakalayo lahat sa mga needs na iyon na kailangang i-fulfill every day. So if they see themselves as like the ordinary employees, for example, or no kaya da nga i-level down je bagbagida, notwithstanding of course the roles and pressure from their positions, then they would see each other eye to eye and they would experience the pressure uh, in terms of how the GJ employees are experiencing it. And if they achieve that common ground, then they could be more compassionate or they could be more emphatic towards each other. If that is achieved, then expect a better working structure kunani Maslach. Ni Mat Frederick Herzberg, in-acknowledge na met dito in terms of the motivation hygiene theory. So kunana, very wrong daw kasi yung pagtingin, lalong-lalo na ng mga executives at ng mga administrators na what motivates us and our basic needs must be met or that they are in a vacuum nga interdependent dati maysa kun maysa. Ngano na nga to iti motivation na nga to met iti job satisfaction kajay or no ma-achieve ti basic needs na nga to met iti level T job satisfaction. Kuna ni Herzberg, that is not the case. Very impartial nga kitain tayo kano iti motivation can fulfillment of basic needs as interdependent or dependent on one another. Kasi according to him, for us to eliminate DJ work-related stress, masapul nga kitain tayo iti motivation kan basic needs as two independent or two separate factors nga adda iti effect na kadija well-being dagijay employees. Okay? So, motivation factors should be met separately and hygiene factors should also be met separately. So, for what are motivation factors? Motivation factors would be the level of challenge in the workplace, work recognition, involvement in decision making, and sense of importance in the workplace. And then hygiene factors would be salary, overall work conditions, policies in the workplace, status and security, and working relationships. So Herzberg says that it's one thing to be excellent in achieving the motivation factors, but it's another thing to meet to be effective in meeting the hygiene factors. Kasi sige, sabihin na natin na your employees feel a high level of sense of importance in the workplace. Ngem, haan met commensurate ka DJ work ngay ited mo kanya na DJ salary na. So, namit mo dyan motivation factor, ngem haan DJ hygiene factor. Therefore, hamulata nga maibaga nga satisfied DJ nga employee ka DJ job na kasi no daduma, di basic needs tayo ket mas importante met ngem DJ motivation tayo in the workplace for example. Kaya ka nga nagwo-work, 'di ba? Para may pakain ka sa pamilya mo at the end of the month. Ngem ngem haanmet nga mamimit DJ for example, uray na nga to iparparik na da nga sense of importance king ka. So, kuna ni Herzberg, dapat as an administrator or as a leader or a supervisor, mamit mo both the motivation factors and hygiene factors na. Or else, hamo nga ma-ensure met lang iti job satisfaction. Okay? Next would be relational conflict in the workplace. Okay? So, makluster tayo siguro ang amin detoy ka DJ maawawagan nga interpersonal conflict. Interpersonal conflict occurs when a person or a group of people interfere with another person's group's attempts at achieving goals and competing tasks. Okay? At interpersonal conflict arise no muna there are different points of view and clashes in personality among employees and between employer and employee, difference in values, poor communication and listening skills. Okay? There are types of interpersonal conflicts in the workplace and I've just chosen the most relatable ones. Anent ka, di Japan ang i-define tayo noon niya iti interpersonal conflict. Umuna would be pseudo-conflicts, okay, or parang conflict if we get the lexical equivalent of pseudo there. But pseudo-conflicts would arise when two parties want different things and can't come to an agreement, okay? Kahit na sa Wendeto, kunada, they also those people ni David Myers, for example, tinusar ko kadetoy, social psychologist, kunana, dagitoy pseudo-conflicts hindi sila nag-a-arise hindi sila nag-a-arise dahil lang may particular topic na hindi nila makita eye to eye, okay? Or hindi nila makita ang benefit for the both of them. No diket di ko nada, ti pseudo conflicts agar arise kasi addan iti naimula nga biases or addan iti naimula nga grudges iti maysa kun maysa. So, di ket organic kano iti pseudo-conflicts. Hindi siya nag-a-arise lang ng basta-basta. At hugot na detan, first and foremost, sakbay nga nag-erupt. Okay? So, may pinaghugutan na silang dalawa and they just found a venue for them to burst and say what needs to be said to each other. Okay? So, that's the reason why pseudo-conflicts happen. Because the desire to approach a task in different ways would have is the reason for conflict. Okay, but then again, as we have said, DJ source of grudge or the source of biases, they developed organically or din dagiti isolated nga cases nga nang pabalin or nakaimula ka DJ nga grudges or biases. The next one would be value-related interpersonal conflict. Sabi, mas mahirap daw i-identify tong type of interpersonal conflict na ito at mas mahirap din na i-mitigate kahit gaano katagal at kahit gaano ka-comprehensive yung conflict resolution technique ng isang leader or ng isang administrator to bridge the gap between and among employees or between him or her can the employees na. Because this one, awan nga min mga yati ag kompromiso. Okay? Apay, kasi syempre, values are hard earned. Okay, this is the sum of all of our experiences and along the way. And if we develop a certain value or principle, it's not easy to let them go, or it's not easy to compromise, because as I have said, values are hard earned and principles are hard earned. Okay, so an example of this clash would be di employer mo or di administrator mo ti kayat na work latan. So karatawag uray no after 5 wano agi designate iti work outside office hours. Ket si kamot nga employee na very sacred mo't kanyam ti family time or dijay self-care routine mo after work. Ket no mabalbalin naka-off no kwa ti cellphone mo no mo kaya ti agsungbat iti tawag no agsungbat iti messages no chats. And if you're continually violated during your sacred hours, syempre talaga, it's war. Agapa kay kadet at hanangarod nga ma-understand nga sika, sacred ganyam jay me time mo, kundi family time mo. Isuna, timot values na malpas di jay ubra. So uray no, it's already getting on the way of family time or of me time. Okay lang kanya na basta numalpas na DJ nga work na designated kanyanan at that exact time. And if it's violating for you, that would be a source of clash. Okay? So that's an example of value-related interpersonal conflict. The third one would be ego-related interpersonal conflict. Okay? So para ka determine, ego conflicts arise when a bunch of little conflicts are left unresolved and pile up. So, in the deto gamin, han nga na-mitigate nga agad-agad. So, syempre, like your pseudo conflicts, dati paghugugutan digitan. And mas nga manifest deto ego-related interpersonal conflict no very felt desire unequal treatment of employees in work, or no makitam talaga nga there's favoritism already ijay workplace. So syempre dijahan nga mapagpaboran or dijay feeling na kathaan nga kaduwa dijay administrator or manager na at a very slight lang nga panaka-reject ti opinion na agbalin suna nga sensitive over data favoritism. And if this continues or haan nga ma-address detoy because awan met open nga communication lines, for example, amongst employees and between DJ manager or DJ administrator kun DJ maseknan nga employee, agbalin iso na nga source of polarization. Okay? Nga makasarak tulat ta DJ nga employee iti kapada na iti experience and DJ perception that they belong to the quote and quote underprivileged employees in the corporation or in the institution, that would lead to the creation or establishment of one polarized group, and the other polarized group would be the gijay met na brand din nga quote and quote as si dagtibanga or dagitay favorite ni ni employer. And because of that, when particular clashes, for example, in meetings, makitam lata no sino dagitay polarized nga groups no kwa, or makitam lata no sino dagitay feeling na ket han nga favored ken dagitay met favored. So when they clash, it would be a clash of egos basically, and not a normal clash han nga constructive nga clash nga towards the betterment of a particular project or the betterment of the institution in general. So, relational conflict in the workplace as a consequence of burnout. Okay? So, when interpersonal conflict among workmates is not mitigated immediately, it could produce various types of burnout among employees apart from the general feeling of stress and burnout that they are now currently experiencing. The first type of burnout that could relational conflict could produce would be overload burnout. So this occurs when workmates already become frantically obsessed with success. Okay, when no dayjay pa ungusan sa posisyon na or agpipinataydan or agaapadan or bibinakstabdan gapo iti prom promotion ken biases in the prom promotion and so on and so forth. Okay? So they become frantically obsessed with success. And these are the signs that you have to look out for. Umuna, when employees become willing to risk their health, personal life, values, and sense of integrity, very important, in pursuit of furthering ambitions you have now developed in them, overload burnout because of unmitigated relational conflicts. Okay? So, mas mapolarize pa, polarized groups, or within that polarized group, ket makita da, nga adda iti mas angat kanyada than the rest, then that could still promote overload burnout. Okay? So much so that employees are now willing to risk their health, personal life, and sense of integrity just so nga maungusan da no sino man dayjay reference person dayjay other nga polarized group. And the type of coping up would be habitual complaining, most specifically para kada gijay feeling da kat unfavored da. Okay? Under challenge burnout. Under challenge burnout happens naman when workmates feel that an unhealthy competition or an ongoing favoritism is already immanent. It is also emphasized in the feeling or experiences nga there's a lack of learning opportunities. No met deto iti type of burnout nga ma-produce out of relational conflict, you would expect nga dagiti quote-unquote underfavored wenno underprivileged nga group wenno people or staff or employees, they would exhibit boredom, they would exhibit excessive absenteeism or leave from work, the low performance, they will exhibit also low performance evaluation or iso da dagiti teachers and nga nabanugen na lusdan ti creativity da or handa kaya ti ag-exert iti too much effort awan iti bibiyangdan no nangatot performance eval daw no nababa kasi handa nga makita nga they're growing and that there's support for them in terms of learning opportunities. And ang masaklap, kapag ka nakaramdam na sila or nakapag-exhibit na sila ng level of indifference, sa tingin ko, nakarating na sila sa point na awanen, there's no turning back. It's either makasara kak iti chance nga umalis idtuyen, wenno yan anos ko basit kitaknog da pagbalbaliwan na, ngem in between that, hana kag-exert too much effort. Okay? And then type of coping up would be avoidance of responsibility, isolation, disengagement, and cynicism. Cynicism, awang pulos pa-check kada kayo no nat ibagbagayo, kuda-kudayo lang detang yung hanyong tumet lang nga aramiden. Okay? And then, the third one, the neglect burnout, it happens when already polarized groups clash repeatedly. Halos inaldawmet lang yenen nga dahanda pa nagkikinaawatan. Wenno halos inaldawmet lang yenen nga agpipin narinig dati maysa kun maysa. This type of burnout could produce helplessness, especially for those who feel disempowered. Okay? So what are the signs to look out for? Umuna, incompetence. Okay? Inability to submit expected outputs on time, habitual mediocrity, ambivalence, and defiance. Okay? By defiance, we mean, siguro, handa kayo tag-uniformen, kanayon da nga maladladawin, kanayon da nga adda iti criticism da no meeting, for example, or handa pa di nga agsasao during meeting, no nalatat kay kayat yun, kasyelatan. And then type of coping up would be passivity and procrastination. Okay? So what can be done? First is to talk it out. Nothing will ever beat the power of open communication lines, honest and open communication lines. Okay? Haan tayo nga mabaling agrelay iti hearsays wenno dagiti danon-danon ikatantay ngamin dagita nga danon-danon nun. Dagita danon-danon ket mabaling aglid ti danog-danog digita no haan nga mamitigate nga dagdagos kasi if you were not there to attest it personally, don't fabricate dagdag bawas nga scenarios in your head and then tell it to other people, laging gana ag-spread so na as wildfire. Kasi, Diyos ko, ado tinaperdin nga relasyon gapo iti danon-danon ubing. Ay, danon-danon guys. Adun tinaperdi nga employer-employer relationship gapo danon-danon. And if something like that happens, you have to talk it out. Dati nga mga Pilipino in general, napaka non-confrontative kasi natin. Parang DJ smooth interpersonal relationship nga ibagbagada nga distinct quality ti Filipinos. Sometimes it weighs us down kasi awan, agiplan tayo latan iti biases can judgments tayo in our heads, in our hearts, for example, without even trying to confront no susto ba di gijay wenno saan. You've just compromised a special relationship with your workmates just because ada mesa nga workmate mo dyan nga makatalnanuhan nga makaperdi siguro ti relasyon nga nangidanon-danon iti fabricated nga istorya and you compromise that relationship without even trying to hear the explanation of the other camp. So for relational conflict and for better leadership and management style to continue, there should be open and honest communication lines nga as Filipinos again in our culture we are so afraid of criticism nga we fail to acknowledge that criticism sometimes are constructive too. Okay? So we have to talk it out. Second, practice active listening. The world does not revolve around you. So if your workmate is opening up to you, kasi ang muna nga makaala iso na iti objective nga knowledge, una objective nga resolution out of you, then you just have to listen there, okay? And hanya DJ dagiti mi narcissistic listeners ket ada i-open up DJ workmate da tas ang pinalnalbas DJ workmate da adain interject da nga personal experience da nga feeling da relevant DJ topic tending nanton iso nanto iti topic hanya DJ agop open up nga hanya DJ issue di agop open up na nga workmate. So please always practice active listening. Okay? Third, employ empathy always. Okay? We are different people. First and foremost, we have different values. We come from different backgrounds. We have specific social experiences or personal experiences that made us who we are. Outside our workplaces, we have other identities. We are mothers, we are children, we are friends to our friends, we are lovers to our spouses and jowas, for example. And we all have our own personal battles too that we do not tell everybody. And so therefore, if we cannot if we cannot be there for each other, every time. Let's just be emphatic towards each other na lang. So that when the tide rises, all ships will sail. Okay? So, konting panakaawat lang, putting of oneself in another's shoes. Tatno lang maawatan tayo no ayan na pagapgapuanan ti maysa kun maysa. Kasi siguro met nulang basit adapan panagkikinaawatan tayo or adabasit ti panakaawat ti maysa kun maysa kada tayo iti maysa kun maysa kun dagi siya pagdadaanan tayo siguro mas nalaglagan lang iti work environments tayo no kwa uray no adadagi jay unprecedented pressure no workload nga han tayo nga maiwasan at least may katkatawa tayo latan kasi amu tayo nga ada may maysa nga paggapgapuanan tayo amin and that is panakaawat. Okay? And then grudges will only weigh you down. Teko na dangaro din, choose your battles. No hanmet nga importante nga patulan, when awan met iti significant nga consequence na no patulam, wag na lang. Save your energy for something more productive nga kunada. Just imagine latan, DJ bangko kuma, nap no ti kwarta DJ, no gatangem amin nga ada iti economic value na wenno no gatangem amin nga kaya nga gatangen DJ kwartam je bangko there will come a point nga mautuyan tulat tamet DJ bank account mo so you just have to choose dagiti significant nga things nga dapat nga pag-i-investam you just have to choose dagiti investments nga makatulong to kanyang productively or in terms of your personhood as an individual in the long run kasi no patulam amin makabannog nakabanbanog lardo bubraan tayon Tapos nayunan tayo pa banog tayo kasi adagrajas tayo nga hantay nga mamiti-mitigate. Wano dadagi biases tayo nga pampanunutan tayo latat ingganat ingganan. Wano feeling tayo ket kasto iti panagkita da kada tayo for example. Stressful enough ti lubungan. Hantay nga nayunan na naya. Our workplaces should be a safe haven where we could all live productively, where we could spend 12 hours of our day productively. Because if we convert the workplace as a battlefield, then tunurumwar ka, everybody outside would be considered as an extension of that battlefield. And it's not healthy. It will lead to burnout. Okay? And if you're someone lastly, if you're someone nga nga amom yan tabagbagim nga you lack communication skills, then I think it's high time for you to practice or to work on your communication skills because it's gonna help you every time. And I mean every time. So that then, siguro, tipay makatulong kada kayo would be to understand what self-care is because according to the World Health Organization, masapol nga kada to level of stress can burnout nga marikrik na tayo, kadi incidence stress can burnout nga marikrik na tayo, we have to develop our own personal self-care routine, okay? But first, we need to look at the facts and myths about self-care routine paylaeng. Umuna, self-care is surrounded with ambiguities, okay? Learn what self-care is and what is not, okay? So, self-care should have a significant positive nga effect king ka, okay? Han nga negative. So, no ti self-care mo, ti assign mo nga self-care for example, ket aginom iti 2 to 3 bottles of beer after work kasi agas banbanog nga kunam. Ngayon, the long run ket naka-develop ka met ti liver cirrhosis wenno masaksakit ka mo tingapo ka dijay, then that's not self-care at all. Nalipatam jabanog mo kasi nakaturog ka dagos but at the expense of your liver. Adu pa'y nagastom no nag-liver cirrhosis ka. So, is that self-care? No, it's not. So, you have to identify self-care in terms of the gijay positive ken significant nga psychological impact na king ka. Kasi inuhaan mo't lang, no, damot lang ma-compromise out of that self-care nga kung kunam or panang palugod mo iti bagbagim, then that's not self-care at all. Okay? Self-care is all or nothing. Okay? So it's about relishing life's small pleasures. And mind you, self-care need not be expensive. No that duma, relishing small pleasures would just be agululdag ka agmalmalem or agreeing ka ti maladaw, agbuya ka iti Netflix and chill nga kunada. Inkag pag napagnay Rob, for example, inkag keg kape-kape with your friends, inka makichismis jay karuba. No dagay ti life small pleasures para kanya, take it every time nga iti time mo to experience it. Or better yet, self-care is actually allocating time, ample time for you to relish small pleasures. To say that self-care is a luxury is not true. Okay? Sometimes self-care can be as simple as meditating ka no, or as I've said tatay, talking with your family and friends, watching together, cooking together, cleaning together even, laba-laba together. Self-care it's not a luxury. Okay? You have to remember that. You have to achieve your goals and earn it, okay? Denying yourself of self-care is actually very detrimental, not only to your health but also to your overall functioning as a person and specifically in the roles that you play. So, what I do personally here is that gimatangak po ti dakkel nga whiteboard ken corkboard impang ko ijay kwartok isurat ko jayen no anan dagi jay expected nga workload ko from Monday to Friday and i-manage ko dijay tapnon come Saturday and Sunday awan pulos obra ekon. Okay? So that's my self-care technique kada gitoy nga nakadadoy ti ububraen. I need to have the Saturday and Sunday for myself. I don't work on Saturdays and Sundays. I do everything that I want on Saturdays and Sundays. I go out with my friends and stuff. That's my self-care routine. And um no kasjay nga ma nga ma-feel ko je bagbagi nga hangko bagi je Saturday kan Sunday ko. Medyo pangit ti workflow ko kadijay nga week. So I see to it that my Saturdays and Sundays are for me. Okay? It takes up a lot of time. Wrong. Self-care does not take up a lot of time. Sometimes it just needs, or self-care would just mean um, standing up, pag na to no 4 to 5, kaya not feeling guilty about it, or getting coffee from the pantry and sipping your coffee alone. Siguro it's a 10-minute browse on Facebook in between work. Self-care does not need to take up a lot of time. So lastly, you will never feel truly satisfied by work until you are satisfied by life. This is very correct, okay? So we first have to satisfy ourselves in terms of DJ psychological well-being tayo, DJ basic needs tayo, before we could excel at work. And if work would become saturating at some point, you have to remember nga outside work, dagitoy ilulook forward mo ne. So, DJ ti rason na no, open nga nang tayo iti basic self-care facts and myths. And the challenge for you to also create your own self-care routine. Kasi, I really believe that you could only be productive in your work if outside it, adadagijay pagalaam iti energy resource nga kunada, ada pagalaam iti energy resource nga haan nga mangway you down, haan nga mangway kanyam down further no diket di positive sources of energy nga mang fuel up kanyam no kasjay man nga very saturating iti work. Okay? So that is stress and burnout, the facts, the layers, and the consequences of it, specifically amongst us teachers or educators, and for all the staff nga within the context of the academe. So, thank you very much for listening, and may we all be safe. Thank you.